host, Curious Tech, and this is an episode of Hot Take. On Hot Take, this is just my quick thoughts about something, current events. Like usual on this channel, we're going to cover it a little bit differently than we see a lot of the chatter is. We're going to talk about some of the things that are common, but try to find a few nuggets in here that are a little bit different. So today we have for you Nvidia CMP. Interesting topic. A couple friends of mine were wondering if Nvidia was going to get involved with the Ethereum market and try to make another dedicated miner. And this is an interesting play that's been getting a lot of mixed reactions from everyone. Nvidia has put this out there as a way to protect the gamers and a gamers first approach. And there's some questions about that. You know, is it really a gamers first approach? Is this looking at the price of Ethereum and where it's gone in the past few months and looking for an opportunity to make some extra money, or something else? So we're going to discuss a couple of points here. One of the things you guys have to know is about how semiconductors are made. And Nvidia does something fundamentally different than a big player like Intel. So what do I mean by that? If you look at processors sold from Intel, they have a high yield. In other words, they sell a lot of what they make. And the reason they're able to get away with that is they set out to make a processor with a certain amount of specifications associated with it. And then when they're done and they send those processors to testing, they figure out some of those processors don't meet the target performance. And so what you end up seeing is identical processors on the same architecture, identical processors with the same amount of layer 2 cache, layer 1 cache, the same number of cores. However, you notice their clock speeds are different. And that really boils down to silicon performance. So even though the entire manufacturing process can be identical, the entire what they call VLSI design or the approach for making the chip could be identical. The actual performance of the chip when it's done manufacturing could be wildly different. And that's usually based on what you call silicon. So an example of a silicon wafer, and those wafers have different physics associated with it. And so even though you manufacture them identically, their performance at the end of the day may not be identical. So in order for Intel to sell more of their processors, what they do is they bin these chips in a wide range, and that allows them to sell a wider range of their fleet. A question I've had a long time is when you look at Nvidia, they do a little bit of this. You'll see, when Nvidia releases sort of their main edition, and then eventually you see these overclocking editions or these OC editions. That means there's a little bit of this happening. So the OC editions will be considered silicon that's running fast. And fast silicon, what they've developed or detected in their labs when they received it from Nvidia, they say, hey, we're going to bin these into the OC group, and then we're going to take these other chips that don't seem to run as fast and put them in our normal release. But generally speaking, that, what makes a 3090, what makes a 3070, what makes a 3060, those architectures are the same, and generally the clock speeds are meant to be identical, which means Nvidia can get less yield because the requirements for each of those take up as much of the chips that they produce. So what they're claiming is that, hey, releasing these CMP processors, they're not going to take anything from the gamers. Ideally, the way that they're phrasing it is that these are chips that didn't meet the specifications for a true GeoForce processor. My thoughts is this has to do with the yield. Others out there think that they may have non-functional ray tracing components or non-functional tensor components. So that's for neural network acceleration for the machine learning people out there. So at the end of the day, the Nvidia CMP, it's just a coprocessor. So some of the chatter I've seen out there is, they're taking off the ports off the back, and by taking the ports off the back, you're destroying the usability of this processor. And that's not exactly the case. So we think of these graphics processors mostly as graphics processors. So normally we have video coming directly from the card. CPU sends video information to the graphics processor sends that information out to whatever your monitor is running off of it. But there's a lot of use cases where GPUs never have anything plugged into them. You see this a lot in the high performance computing, supercomputing space. Racks and racks and racks of servers, GPUs, all of these servers, and there's no video plugged into these. There's no monitor plugged into these. So what does that mean? When you think about CMP is just a coprocessor. So that makes me really wonder, are these really things where the tensor cores are actually broken? If you think of machine learning applications, they'll never need to use the video output from the GPU, right? So I'm assuming for this to work, these all have to be CUDA compliant. So that means whether or not they're using CUDA 10 or CUDA 11 or potentially some other version of CUDA, at the end of the day, in order to get these workloads onto these cards, they need to be CUDA compliant. If they have some logic components for the driver to help with TensorFlow, then these cards aren't just useful for miners. And the reason why that gets important is the price of crypto is highly volatile. So we've seen crypto go up, going to really high numbers in the past couple of weeks. We've also seen in the past where crypto numbers have come down and haven't made it cost efficient to do mining at all. So then what happens to these systems that are built that don't have video coming out? Are they going to produce enough of them for them to potentially be used in these other applications, whether or not they're neural network applications or other CUDA coprocessor applications? As an example of that, I'll flash up the Intel 5. Right? This is a coprocessor used for specialized applications, and as you'll see, it's not a graphics card and it doesn't have any graphics outputs. And there's a number of cards like that exist out there. Again, a lot of Nvidia GPUs used in the data center, even when they're used in the data center for customers to leverage, they don't have graphics coming out of them. And so that ties into one of the next parts of the CMP is what are they going to do with pricing? A non-tech did a good breakdown of estimated performance per watt comparing to the 3070 and the 3080 series, and their performance per watt doesn't look that good. In general, their performance isn't that great either way for Ethereum mining. It's not bad whatsoever, but just you might have expected a little bit more performance out of them, a dedicated Ethereum miner. And this tags back to the theory that these chips weren't created for Ethereum mining per se, just as much as these chips were things that they couldn't sell or haven't sold up until now that they're trying to sell, packaged in a slightly different format. With pricing, are they going to take an approach where they charge more for these because they're going to be used for mining purposes? So you could think of how products made for consumers and made for businesses tend to have different price points. Things made for businesses tend to have higher price points because for a business it's just the cost of doing business, and they do the math, and if the math works out, it's worth buying. If the math doesn't, they don't buy it. But given their performance relative to the consumer grade products, if the price is too high, I don't see how this helps the normal consumers whatsoever. Even if the price is low, the price per watt isn't that great, which means for miners purchasing or potentially thinking about purchasing these, they're probably going to go after the consumer ones first until they can't buy any more consumer ones. And then when their only choice remains, then will they consider buying these CMP processors. And that's actually what you see happening right now. You're seeing a lot of these laptops get released with the Nvidia 30X processor series GPUs. So you're seeing Asus drop theirs, you're seeing Razer drop theirs, all these different manufacturers dropping their new laptops. And you've got the miners considering making miners out of laptops. Even though the footprint usually isn't that great, if you look at the performance, the mega hashes they're able to produce for the Ethereum blockchain are very respectable. So you're seeing investments made where people are spending $2,000 per laptop and setting these things up to be miners. They only will do that because there is no cards available, or very few amount of cards available. Is the same going to be true for CMP? Will they only be bought when all of the better price performance cards are gone? And that starts to take you into the next thing that Nvidia did. One of the best price per watt cards is the 3060, and I think Nvidia realizes that, so they went with a software driver change on it to make its hash performance at less. Given the amount of money we're talking about available here in the crypto space, I don't think that's going to stop anybody. We already have functional drivers for it. Those will be frozen on ice, and any new drivers, I think there'll be plenty of effort meant to tweak those to get them working well enough on these new cards, whether they're tricking the drivers into thinking they're 3070, etc. But I don't think this driver way of neutering the 3060 is going to stop miners from using them just because their price per performance is so good.
And this does it for Hot Take. If you like what you heard here today, please comment and like below. If you want to hear more and see other things that we have coming out, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you.